Good day, my name is Paulina and I'm gonna be here today to talk to you when a loved one dies. However, I am going to show you different resources if the case is that you haven't lost a loved one but you have had a different loss. So just bear with me, please. The reason why I'm part of Sorgarmiðstöð is because in 2012 I lost triplets at birth. Apart from that, like many of you have already lost a loved one. Like I also lost my dad in 2020. He died of cancer after struggling with it for 5 years. So this is how I know more or less about grief. Well, I would like to let you know also that, as you can see in the slide, that like one will hope that the life will just go straight, like no struggles at all. This will be the ideal thing for it to happen. However, the life, like things happen. Like some things are really good, some others are not so good, but at the end we keep on going and we reach the same end. We are full of feelings, and this is the way that makes us the way we are. So this is how life is at the end. So we have different feelings. Some of them, as you can see, are very intense, good, bad, calm. So we can sometimes move towards one of the sides more than from the other. And at the end, well, some people might find a balance in between. I don't know how many of you have watched the movie of Disney, the one with the different characters, where they portrayed, like a lot of anger, sometimes a lot of sadness, like the character that is blue and all of that. But at the end, it just has to do with finding the balance in between the other ones. And this is the way how we are going to help ourselves also to get away from the grief. Well, the feelings go and come just as the waves do. Sometimes we feel them like very intense, just as I showed in the previous slide. Sometimes they are not so strong, so they don't really bother us much. They are there, but sometimes like they really come super intense, especially like if you have gone to Reynisfjara, no? Like you see the water is like super shallow, super calm, and suddenly there is like a big wave coming in. So this is basically how the feelings are. Well, you know that the grief is complex because we are really complicated. And this is something that we have to respect. And we are not easy. If not, life will be so easy, as I show, like it will be no issue, and maybe what will life be for, if not to learn from all these ups and downs. But we cannot really compare to others whether our grief is more than for other people. Like I feel personally my loss have been very bad. I sometimes hear when somebody else loses their kid, and I also find them very bad. And it doesn't really matter when somebody lost their kid, if it was in the first trimester of the pregnancy, if it was in the last one, because, well, like we are all very different. We have different personalities. We have lived through so many different things, and so on and so forth. So, for example, here, like grief over death with or without prelude. This is also something that will help us determine whether how we are going to take the loss of somebody. For example, when I was pregnant with my triplets, I didn't really get to know them. I didn't talk to them. They didn't reply back. I just felt them inside myself. However, when I lost my dad, of course, I had 30 years of being with him, talking almost every day, and getting to know him, being raised by him, like he had his personality and so on and so forth. So they were, of course, two completely different losses, as well as the triplets. When they died, it was more like a sudden death in a way, something that we could expect but was not confirmed. However, with my dad dying of cancer and struggling for 5 years, we knew that eventually, like, the doctors were trying to hold his life as long as they could, but that we knew that he could have died any time during those 5 years. So at the end, when it happened, we were like very calm, and people were really surprised on how we took it, because we had already been preparing for some time. And I think I grieved in a different way, like more strongly when my kids died, because of that. Like, it was more sudden, it was not expected, and so on and so forth. So the grief is affected by so many things, like I was mentioning, by how did it occur, was it death imminent or sudden, what the reactions are in the environment, among the friends, the employers, the school, and so on and so forth. So some people surrounding you might be more with a weaker, I don't know, like, or not weaker, but like they will maybe show more feelings than others. And of course, how your relationship was, with a person, if it was your partner, if it was maybe a friend. I mean, you must know that, friend A is different from friend B, depending on the situations that you lived. So, does everybody who loses somebody need help? Well, remember that grief is not a disease, but a feeling following the loss of a loved one, which can be very fluctuating between days and within the same day. I mean, just, like we mentioned in the first slides, like the feelings changes quite a lot. What helped once does not work for everybody. Maybe you have seen it, people sometimes give not the best advice, it's gonna pass, or I don't know. But then there are things that work for you that might not work for me as an individual. So it is the work of oneself to find out what works for you. Like, it will not be very good for me to let you know what worked for me, for example. Maybe I could give you some ideas on the things that help me out. Maybe some of them will be helpful, but others are something that each one of us will have to figure out. Like, for example, something that helped me out really much with after losing the triplets, it's to join a group that is in Iceland for grieving parents and their families. So at least seeing that I was not the only one going through a loss, that there were other circumstances, and finding support also for a future pregnancy. So you will think, like, after, like somebody that we love goes away, what will happen with me? Maybe we feel alone in the world, that this person have left us, like willingly, unwillingly, depending, on how the death happened, and so on and so forth. But yeah, there are so many things that will determine on how we will, how we will react later what we will be doing. So people will ask, like, can I survive this? Like, of course we will survive this. I am one person who has survived. Many people have survived. I mean, almost I could think that everybody in the world has lost somebody. It doesn't really have to be a person, but I mean, it could be a pet. It can also be a job. But nonetheless, we feel that our world collapses. Like, yeah, it is unexplainable how you feel after, you have lost somebody suddenly. Um, the care of the family and friends is invaluable, and somebody that can hold me, comfort me, calm, and stay with me. That's something that helps. For example, this person, Wendy, says, and people cook for me, and people answer the phone for me, people care for me when I couldn't do it myself. So we just have to trust on other people, because I believe that we might want to be very strong for ourselves. I saw it with my mom. She was very, like willing to do everything by herself, like her living in Mexico, where I am from, me being here, and just like, okay, I can do this, I'm strong. There are many things that your dad used to do in the house, but now I have to take over it. But sometimes it's really good for us to let us be accompanied by other people. Like it was, for example, her friends, cooking for her, visiting her, like just having somebody there. It doesn't really mean that somebody will have to do something for you. Because sometimes it is also very difficult for us to know what we want. I mean, and it is not only during the grief, it is all the time. Sometimes we don't even know what we want to eat for the next meal or something like that. But just to also know that we are not alone. For example, I remember when we lost the triplets, one of my best friends, she joined us at the funeral. So that was really good. Me not having a family, like direct family in Iceland, and her going meant a lot for me, just to have a friend, like she didn't have to do much, just be there. So because we all have different personalities, we have different emotions, then there are people that will want to act in a different way. So some of them want to just feel, others want to think, like be more congruent, others they want to do something, and others just want to avoid. For example, like doing, it would be writing an article in the media, I don't know, writing an obituary to talk about the person, thinking, maybe just remembering, feeling, I don't know, the same, like if you went to a concert with the person, what you felt, or avoiding in general, like let's just go move on, like maybe don't think that it really happened. But then again, you go through all these 4 squares in different circumstances or at different times. Like it's not that you focus more on one or the other. But, maybe one day, like there is no more like the 7 steps of grieving. It is simple that you move along these 4, and yeah, it is not something straight that you go step 1, step 2, 3, and then like it's done, like you are not gonna grieve anymore. This is something that keeps on happening, and I mean, after 10 years that my triplets died, I keep on going through this constantly. But my feelings in general, they have decreased from being very intense to being mild or very low compared to how they were, but they keep on being there. This is like very interesting. This is something that was written in Iceland in Roof in Rouse 1 in the show of the obituaries in 2020, and very shocking. Once upon a time, there were no obituaries reading about people who committed suicide. Once upon a time, mothers didn't write obituaries about their children, but once upon a time doesn't exist anymore. Today, you are allowed to cry and grieve publicly, and today you can ask for help. So this is very important, and I am super grateful that things are shifting for the better. I'm sorry if I'm mentioning too much like my loss, but I think this is also related to it. That I am part of Gleimere, who is an organization, part of Sorgarmiðstöð, taking care of the parents and family and relatives or friends of those who have lost their kids during the pregnancy or shortly after. And before, you couldn't even speak about losing a kid. Well, I call a kid, but the doctors call it a fetus during the first trimester. But nowadays, it is not that we are encouraging, but it is not normalized, but at least you are able to speak out if you have lost a kid during the first trimester, because it's another loss. So what it's good to know is for you as a mourner that at the end we are all going to grieve, but the research has shown that most of us will grieve in a normal way. So we have resilience so that we are not going to break apart. So we will get through it. But it is good if I can, in spite of the grief. Like, these are questions that you might want to ask yourself. Can you communicate honestly with friends and family? Can you take care of your basic needs? Can you face the finality? Like, at the end, you know that the person who passed away, they are not going to be there. So then can you overcome self-harming talks and stay focused? The will to survive the trauma. So, sometimes when we lost our loved ones, we don't want to live anymore. We want to join the person. We just don't want to be alone. And that's perfectly normal. I mean, you want to be a reflection of this person who has passed. But then again, then I would like to let you know, can you realize that although nothing will ever be the same again, I believe that something good can happen and I will feel happy again. Like, if you can do that, if you can know that you will be happy again, I'm not saying that you're going to be the same happy that you were before, but if you can do that, at least that's something really good. I can tell you that my husband has mentioned several times, and I have permission from him to share this with you, but he used to be a very happy man. If people were to say a joke, then he were just to laugh, and now he mentions that even if there is something really funny, he doesn't really feel like laughing or being this happy self-old. This is something that happened after our triplets passed away. The next one, can you find a healthy outlet for anger if you feel angry? Which is perfectly normal to find anger. Can you understand your reactions and find some purpose in life? When I was really angry at something or somebody during our loss, what worked for me was, for example, to write it down. I published many articles, and I spoke a lot on the internet and also in radio shows. So that was my healthy outlet for anger, without harming anybody, nor, yeah. Then the second step is surviving from day to day. Can I survive the tsunami, the next mental storm? As I mentioned before, the research has shown that we will all survive the grief, and we just have to find the balance between our life. The grief takes time, and there is no straight line, just as our life. It goes and comes in different waves, and yeah, there is no path to show you like step 1, 2, 3, and then you are done. It is just a different process. And now, as I was mentioning to you, these 7 steps or something, I don't really remember, of the old grieving steps doesn't longer exist. But then we just go through different feelings. And because you feel love, you feel, these are all bad or very low feelings, in a way, low feelings. But it doesn't mean that it is bad. It's perfectly normal to feel that way. And these are some things that you might be going through. And I mean, this is something that happens to us. Even if we, for example, have lost a job, it doesn't really need to be when we lose somebody. But, we are just we cannot deal with our life. We are not ourselves. However, the human possesses a quality, and that's to be able to resurface from depths and breathe in the oxygen of joy, to be able to continue. The vast majority are very resilient when the going gets tough. People deal with the most incredible trials and get through them, and get to know their own strengths that create new possibilities. Don't try to hide the grief from children, but teach them. So this is just very important. What the says, what kills you doesn't makes you stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. No, that's the Kelly Clarkson song. So this just teaches you about life. I mean, this is just going to a job and learning new things from yourself. Learning new things from life that will help you in the future, and maybe just help other people as well. If your loved one died because of new disease or something, and then you might be able to tell other people to try to prolong the life of this person, or something like that. And this about hiding the grief from children, this is something very that used to happen, just as I was mentioning with the loss in the first trimester, that it happened to me. My grandfather had died, and my parents didn't want to let me know. So they tricked me into visiting my grandfather at the hospital, but at the end when we arrived to the funeral house, and that made it harder for me to accept suddenly not being happy with my parents because they had lied to me, and then facing that my grandfather had died. And now in my family I have living kids, and we talk to them about that, of course, about their siblings and so on and so forth, and they take it much better. Of course, television has also helped out, and me coming from my cultural background where death is laughed at and celebrated in a way, with different festivities out in Mexico, this has helped as well, which is part of the life experience and where you come from as well. So that now my kids are, when their grandfather died, it was very normal. they didn't really spend much time with him either, but it was very easy for them compared to when my grandfather died. It is important to be honest with your own feelings, acknowledge them, and work with the pain, get to know where, are its roots. Don't be afraid of grief. It will come in waves and torrents. Take the time to collect yourself, build up your self-image, show self-compassion and gentleness, and just tell to yourself, I am doing my best. I mean, we are not perfect, and we are doing what we can, what is in our hands. And it doesn't really mean that you have to do all of this like right now. Sometimes I believe that life brings us different opportunities, and at the end it's like a puzzle. Everything will come to its place, but sometimes it doesn't come on its own. We also have to work on it. So just have in mind that it is important to keep on going and to take care of ourselves. And this is just to care about us, because finally we are the ones who keep on being alive, and we have to work on our grief. So what is good for me? It is good to take a look at the help of tips, what has worked well, like what has worked well for you. So like if it works for you to feel, to do, or to act, or to avoid. So, depending on the circumstances, like if you are really enjoying something now, I don't know, playing basketball, volleyball, I don't know, watching a show, you don't have to go directly to, I need to feel sad because I lost somebody. Like enjoy, this feeling of joy, because this will help you, who are the one who is here now, to keep on going. So do you enjoy being in nature, outdoors? I mean, Iceland has great opportunities to do this. It is like super beautiful to do some meditation work. I don't know if maybe some of you are part of a religious group, or if in your culture, like you practice something like I do in Mexico, or like we do in Mexico, that we celebrate the Day of the Dead, remembering the deceased ones, and always remembering them on how they were when they were alive, and just think that in the future, when we also pass away, that we are going to reunite with them. And going to the cemetery, talk to them, make an altar. So at least that's something that works for me. Maybe for some other people, they prefer going to church or something, listen to the pastor or to the priest or something like that. And then existential questions often become pressing. So some people, we don't know what's after death. So this is something that you are always thinking, like is my beloved one in a good place? So I don't know. I would like for all of us to reflect a little bit on what we like doing together. Are there any place where you really feel good? Do you like going out for a walk, looking at the ocean, smelling the ocean, looking at the waves? I don't know, visiting your friends, going to a coffee place, drawing a book, reading a book, watching a movie. Um, Sometimes I feel that we stop ourselves and feel very anxious about taking the next step. Like I was mentioning, like how is it gonna be possible for me to enjoy watching a movie or I don't know, something. But then sometimes it is good to break this barrier little by little. Like practice makes us a mestari, a master. Mm, so like I have been mentioning, like my world, my story, that's something that matters. So the way we were raised, where we were raised, it's the way that it's going to affect us in how we are taking grief. So the relationship with others, the growing up, our role models, schooling, jobs, offers, opportunities in life. What are your happy moments? What are your past traumas that weigh you? Then, have you have any traumatic experiences? But also, what have your success been? So, yeah, this is just what makes us the way we are going to be able to take a step towards becoming a whole again. And just as I have mentioned, learn from what we have gone through, and that's the way we are going to learn to live with the loss, which will help us finally to move on after the collapse, finding our own purpose in life now and also in the future. Maybe many of you have already done something now after your loved one has passed away, but we could think again of what could be keep on being helpful for us. And one of the good things about Sorgarmiðstöð is that it has the website in English and also Polish, and hopefully soon it's gonna be available in other languages. But it is that in here we can join a support group in the grief center Sorgarmiðstöð, and then share with others our experience of if you have something similar to somebody else who have lost a child, a spouse, a foster child, a parent, or another in a different way, like if it was sudden death, if it was not sudden, and so on and so forth. And just get to know that we are not alone in this journey. The good thing about these support groups is that you have at least 2 group leaders. They are very small groups, and then you are in a group with similar of people with similar experiences and you, and then there is a kind of one-to-one communication, like, so this helps you to work on the loss in the grief better. So the approach is pastoral psychology. So we give Sorgarmiðstöð a space for sincerity and warmth to help us survive the suffering and find meaning in this changed existence, to find my way. So like your wave will be different for somebody. Like some people might take some different roads, and at the end we might go end in the same path. So this is just like a very beautiful picture, because this is like when it says, when the Japanese mend broken objects, they aggrandize the damage by filling the cracks with gold. They believe that when something suffered damage and has a history, it becomes more beautiful. So your loss is not an awful scar. It is something that has made you better. Well, thank you very much for listening to the talk. If you have some questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, or also to send an email to sorgarmiðstöð@sorgarmiðstöð.is. Like here is the link to the website that can be found in English, and somebody can also reply to you in English. Thank you very much.